Hello and welcome. This is Aretha. Today I want to talk about how I filter out all the self-help content I consume and curate what is relevant to me. So let's start with why this video matters. We are bombarded with so much information that we can go from being inspired to being overwhelmed very quickly. Now, I think self-help is a great thing, but without a proper way to filter out the abundance of information out there and the contradicting information out there, it can start to feel like a little bit too much. I'm passionate about personal growth, personal development. I'm especially focused on self-management, and these are all things that are part of the self-help world. And overall, I really enjoy consuming this type of content because it expands how I see the world and how I think about myself. If I never knew that there was another way I could try to do things, then my options would be fairly limited. Hearing how other people might do things opens up new possibilities for me. But the key word here is possibility. Not everything I come across needs to be acted on or adopted into my life. And not everything I consume matters to me equally. Self-help advice is not a mandate. It's here to support you with whatever you need. You get to take what resonates with you and leave the rest. So my very first piece of advice when filtering self-help content is to disregard any piece of advice that makes you feel bad about yourself or doesn't resonate with you. So if you don't particularly like reading books, stop reading articles about how to read 100 books a year. What is the point of that? And I know you probably think this is obvious advice, because after all, no one can make you do anything you don't want to. But I want you to pay attention to advice you hear over and over again. Maybe you dismiss it the first time, but if it's constantly in your feed and you keep hearing it from different people, it will start to sound like something you want to try. Don't go against your gut here. Just because something is popular doesn't mean you have to join the bandwagon. I promise you, you're not missing out on anything. There will be a new wave of popular content soon, and then you can decide if that is for you or not. So now that you've eliminated all that noise, you will be left with things that are actually interesting to you. But even at this level, I find that I still need filtering. You can like something, but for somebody else. I don't know why, but it took me a while to understand that just because I admire something from afar doesn't mean that I have to force it into my life. So for example, I really love long, flowy, boho style dresses on other women. I think these dresses look beautiful, they feel very feminine, airy, free, and playful to me. But I also find that I don't like how they look on me when I put them on. Based on my height and my body type, I prefer myself in more structured, tailored pieces. But for years and years, I tried to make these dresses work for me because I loved them on other people. But now I realize that I can absolutely love something on somebody else and have absolutely no desire to make it mine. And the best part of this realization is that I can genuinely be happy for other people making different choices than me and not feel at all like I have to justify that I like something completely different. So that was a little bit of a detour, but it illustrates how I feel about some self-help advice. Sometimes I hear something that makes logical sense to me and seems interesting, and yet I know that I have no interest in trying it. And if that's the case, I just release it as something that is just not for me, at least not at this season of my life. So my second piece of advice is to be clear about the things that you like, but just are not a fit for you right now in this season of your life. It doesn't mean that they may not work for you later. It just means that right now you are going to watch them from afar and not try to force them into your existence. So when you look at your feeds, you can still be exposed to this content and watch it periodically, but I would treat it like a human interest story or like entertainment, not as information that you want to use right now to do anything with it. So you just scroll through it, don't feel any kind of way about it, and just let it go. So a couple of examples that fall into this category for me are the super early morning routines that are really complicated and have 10 to 15 steps. Those just feel a little bit overwhelming to me at this stage of my life. But I understand the appeal of waking up early at 4 or 5 a.m. and accomplishing by 8 a.m. more than most people will do in an entire day. I get the appeal. It just doesn't fit for me right now. Not at this stage of my life, not with a child under 5, and not with all the other commitments I have right now. But in a few years, who knows? Maybe I'll be one of those people. If you are in a place where that kind of routine makes sense for you, more power to you. I will cheer you on from the sidelines. This is a perfect example of I love that, but for someone else. So by now, we've eliminated everything we don't like and what we like but for other people. We should be left with what we like that feels relevant to us right now. My next recommendation is to look at every piece of self-help advice that you like, that you think is applicable right now, and decide whether it'll become part of your routine or you would put it in a place where you can access it quickly when you need it. So let me share some examples about the routine versus resource in my own life. I heard that you should not be drinking coffee within the first 90 minutes of waking up because your cortisol levels are high when you wake up. When I heard that piece of advice, it immediately made sense to me and resonated with me. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to make that part of my routine. I already start my day with a glass of water. So coffee is not the first thing I consume. But now I make sure I get myself ready, I get my daughter ready, I get everyone out the door, and I don't drink my first cup of coffee until I'm starting my first meeting for the day. And on the days that I work from the office, I just wait until I'm there before I drink the first cup. So in this example, I heard something that I thought was interesting and I decided I'll just try that and make it part of my day. On the other hand, I recently heard something on the podcast that resonated with me and I decided to make it part of my toolbox so I could reference it in the future when I need it. The advice I heard is about how to use your values when you're trying to make decisions. Now, as a self-help aficionado, I had already done quite a bit of work around values. And I found it useful to understand values as a way to gauge whether my life was headed in the right direction. But my values were something I revisited maybe once a year, and the rest of the time they were tucked away in the back of my mind. But now this podcast was giving me a way to incorporate my values into decision making. So basically, when you find yourself at a fork in the road where you have to choose between two options that seem to be equally good, use your values as a way to break the tie. So when you find yourself having to make that tough decision, take a minute to revisit your values and then take the option that aligns more closely with your true personal values. The way I see it, the role of self-help is to provide me with options, but I only want to mess with options that work for me and make me feel good. My job is to take that information and create routines that support me and help me feel and be my best. And by creating a toolbox of resources that I have pre-vetted, I have my own back. When I am in a difficult situation and I feel like I need support or advice, I can look through my toolbox and pull something that is relevant to the situation I'm currently dealing with. I find that this is a beautiful way that I can support myself, build confidence in my own resiliency, and build trust with myself. If you like this video, I think you'll also like the one where I share 3 ways to strengthen your relationship with yourself. So if you haven't seen that video yet, I recommend you go watch it.